Let's Get Down to Business is presented by Bravo, the marketing arm of Ash Brokerage Corporation, the practice enhancement company. All this week, it's the Advanced Insurance Sales Series, and on today's show, retirement product options. And with me today is nationally recognized advanced sales expert and creator of InsMark, Bob Ritter. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you, Steve. Nice to see you.
Bob, I have to say, I was reading your resume, and I've known you I've been in this thing 30 years, and how long have you been in the industry?
Over 50.
Over 50,
I think it's 56, actually.
And you started with Mass Mutual, right?
Yep.
And you were not only a Mass Mutual agent, but were you not the youngest general agent ever in their system?
I hear it's still ever, yeah.
It's still there. Wow. Well, I started out with the venerable New England back in the day.
Well, we were trained like peas in a pod.
That's right. And think about this. I didn't even know Brokerage existed when I got into the business. How about you?
Barely. My New York agency got me involved, yeah.
But one surprise I did see, and I'm a fellow musician myself and made my living until my mid-30s, so I got into financial. I see that you were also a musician as well.
Well, at one point, yeah, I was.
Well, I see that you were on television on the Tonight Show when you used to play. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, that was a big deal for us.
It was a big deal. Well, it's still a big deal. You were on the Night Show. Who was was it guest?
No, Steve Allen.
It was Steve Allen before Johnny Carson. Okay, wow.
Jack Parr after, in between, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at, you have the #1 software in the United States for any advanced sales planning. It's huge. Your name is known for connecting advanced in sales, especially focusing on insurance sales, comparing it to other products. And when I look at this, I'm trying to figure out, today we're going to talk about product retirement options. And when I'm looking at options, there's so many options out there, and I don't know how to compare it. And what you've done is you've taken InsMark and you've made this a mathematical call. It isn't about whether you prefer one product over another. It's about, what does the math say? What's the bottom line net return?
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about why you invented it. Are you a software person by nature?
No, but I think there's something in music and math that works on the same part of your mind. But I discovered that I felt a whole lot better when I was comparing one thing to another. That nothing is really very good in an absolute sense. Mm-hmm. It's good in a comparative sense. And so life insurance is not absolute great, it's comparatively great. And so that's the way I move towards it.
Well, when we look at it, why don't we put up on the board the first document and talk me through it, because a lot of people really enjoy InsMark. What we've done is, instead of doing the illustrations, we went ahead and actually taken one of your summary sheets. And when I'm comparing it, I'm looking at our first case study here, and it's talking about a male 45, $500,000 of index UL, index universal life, and he's doing $20,000 a year. Now, walk us through some of the basics here of what you've done here in this summary statement.
Well, there's a variety of alternatives. The most obvious one, of course, is a taxable account, and we can do them all the way from taxable to equity account to tax deferred. But I picked taxable for this. And then the key is, what if the UL is going off at 7.5%? What do you put the taxable at? There's no way you're finding a taxable 7.5 today. Of the classic sense, you're talking 1s and 2s and maybe 3s if you stretch a little. But I did 7.5 on a taxable account to give it the best possible look against the 7.5 UL. And so what we're doing is saying X dollars into a taxable account, X dollars into a universal life. And what do the numbers say? How good is the UL compared to a taxable account? What happens here happens no matter what instrument you have, including an equity account.
So if you're looking, and the first rule of thumb is, we're trying to get to the net number. After tax, what's my spendable and what's my true cash flow? Do you think most of our advisors think that way when they're looking at retirement comparisons like this?
God, I would hope so, but I don't. Perhaps not.
Yeah, see, this is where I'm always taken back. We just had Ken Davis on a couple weeks back. He's a CPA and a certified financial planner, and we were not taking into account any of the issues for Social Security taxation. It was unreal. I couldn't believe how many emails we had based on what? Steve, I didn't know that the capital gain trap. I didn't know about the AMT. I didn't know about tax-exempt muni bonds and their impact on Social Security. What we've done here is we've taken a comparison that actually shows taxable and tax-free, especially if you keep the contract in force. Now, when I'm looking at 7.5, I don't know what product has done that in the equity market, but there are people that boast of that. There are asset allocators out there, Monte Carlo theorists, that actually believe that they have 7.5. But if I really got that when you start looking at these numbers have secondary impact, because I just brought up one of them, Social Security. I mean, if you actually were pulling only your tax-free withdrawals to basis and policy loans of gain, and you kept that contract in force for the life of the client, that would not impact the Social Security because it's not going to show up as income.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about this whole issue of net return, because this is where I say, you said we hope their advisors are bringing this up. Bob, I'm thinking that we need to actually walk through this and make sure everybody is bringing it up.
Well, the only thing that contaminates the growth of a life insurance policy are the mortality charges. The only thing that contaminates a taxable account is income tax, perhaps a management fee, which I didn't even show here. So the growth of one usually, almost always outstrips the other, particularly when you're taking money out of the policy. That's the real definer of quality, I think. If it can sustain a reasonable level of after-tax cash flow, stay in force, it'll beat anything on the market.
When you think about what you just said, because I think this is, you said you didn't take the actual fee by the advisor. If this was a qualified plan, there's no fees coming out of the qualified plan. If they're using any equity accounts that have maybe extra expenses from the statement of additional information, I mean, that's a lot of extra numbers. We're not even doing that, and look at the numbers and the results from the analysis.
Yes.
See, to me, that's the big thing. If you take the all-in, I'm not afraid to put cost of insurance on the table. I'm not afraid to put our admin costs. I just want to make sure when we're talking about comparing like this, that we're taking the all-in expense loads and getting the net results. When we come back from the break, we're going to discuss the #1 controversy in the insurance industry. Should you sell your clients and prospects term or permanent life insurance? And don't forget Bob's free trial offer to take Insmark for a spin at insmark.com/free offer/ash. And remember, you can also sign up for the 30-day free trial offer from Backroom Technician at brtnow.com/trialsignup.aspx. We'll be right back after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back. I'm Steve Savant with Bob Ritter. And remember, you can watch all of our episodes at Let's Get Down to Business, including my weekly consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game, at ashbrokerage.com. And just click on the show logo and it'll take you right out to our homepage. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor or legal counsel, as well as your broker-dealer compliance officer. Well, let's get down to business. We're discussing the #1 controversy in the insurance industry. Should you sell your clients and prospects term or permanent life insurance? Well, Bob, we're talking about probably the most controversial, as I said on my coming into the segment. It shouldn't be controversial. We should just let the math make the call. This is what the beauty of Insmark. Let the math just make the call. It's not an issue, a philosophical issue. It's not ideology. It's mathematics. Buy term, invest the difference. Let's say I have the wherewithal to do whatever I want. I could fully fund it. I don't have to worry about making the difference. Am I comparing the difference to whole life? Am I comparing the difference to index, universal life? I just have the wherewithal. Walk me through just the hardcore math. Let the math be the logical decision here.
Well, in the case we're talking about today, we've got a $20,000 premium on a $500,000 life insurance policy. You could buy that policy for $600 for about the best term you can lay your hands on a 20-year basis. Which means if you bought the term, you'd have, what, $19,400 a year to put away. The key is not that that's so good, is what can you do with that? Taking the same amount of money, using a 7.5% assumption as on the UL as well as on the so-called side fund, a taxable account here. What you develop is a distinct difference in advantage of the cash value life insurance.
Well, walk me through some of the basic advantages of doing this, because the math clearly shows this.
Well, several. Probably not the least of which is the fact the term runs out, in this case, at 65, where you have an interesting series of choices. Let it go, have no coverage. This thing was a stop pay at 65 on the UL, so it means you keep the coverage without paying for it. Impossible with the term. Who knows what rates you're going to get? It could be anywhere from many thousands perhaps in the 5 figures, if you can't pass a physical and get a brand new one, just to take the renewal rate that goes along with it. So that in and of itself is you've got basically no premium lifetime coverage with the universal life approach I took here.
Let's say that I don't believe what I'm about to say, but let's just go the worst scenario and compound your explanation. Let's say I don't care about coverage. I'm just looking for raw money in, money out, after tax, term or no term, permanent or no permanent. I use this as a supplemental retirement plan. Does it still work?
Well, yeah, the term plan, I think, runs out of gas at age 82. The life policy is still cranking at age 95. And that's the answer specifically to the retirement question. That's the reason.
So if I'm looking at it, I guess what we're trying to compare is always bringing up we're trying to be fair comparison. And I think this is why Insmark does such a great job, because it really gives you the math on a timeline. In this case, we've done a summary statement off the illustrations. And this really proves to me, even if you are a purist and you said, Steve, I don't even want indemnification. I don't even want protection. I don't even want coverage. I'm just looking at money in, money out. What do I get? Taxable, tax-free, or qualified plan versus non-qualified plan. That to me is the beauty of looking at a comparison chart like this, because it really, really reconciles in your mind. All I've done is input all the actual issues, the tax bracket, the actual rate of return. I've done it on a timeline, and here's my number. It produced this.
Exactly.
I think that really, I want math to argue the actual discussion here, and this is what this does.
And it's not rigged. I mean, occasionally you'll find a case where someone says, I need coverage for 5 years. That's all. It's a business deal and I have to have the coverage. Should I buy term? Probably should buy term. This thing will prove that you should probably buy term. It's not biased solely in favor of UL. Just the numbers work out, whichever way it works out.
And so I think that's another thing that you're bringing in some objectivity to it, because I think when you're saying we did the math and you should buy term, because the math is going to make the call. So whether it's term or permanent, what we're always looking for is give me the actual mathematics based on your assumptions. If everybody believes and buys into your presupposition, if they buy into your assumptions, then let's just let the software make the call for us.
Exactly.
Now, how long has this been out on the street, would you say, in this format where you're able to compare this?
We started it in '82, but I was doing it all my life in the business. Used to do it on the old green accountant pages where you do them with ink. Basically the same thing.
It's amazing, Bob, because when you think about it, when I first started in the business, I was using a rate card. So you're talking about using this sheet. I haven't heard that name mentioned in like years.
Remember the green sheet?
The green sheet. I haven't heard the green sheet mentioned. So for you young people that are watching us, you're saying, Steve, what are you talking about? Rate cards, green sheets, and no computers. Think about that.
A Marchant.
Yes.
12-key Marchant.
When I think about comparing the kind of ideas that we're talking about and being able to prove it from a math point of view, this really brings credence, especially in the CPA Society, when you're looking at attorneys who deal in estate planning or probate, as well as trust officers who are now just starting to understand, by the way, their liability, that they need to check on all this. Bob, if you had to sit there and say, how long did it take you to generate this? Input and all.
Maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
So you have if you have all the information on a data collector, and I took that information from my data collector and inputted it, and by the time I generate it, we're talking 5 minutes.
First time.
The first time, to kind of see what the math is.
Yeah.
How many iterations do you think you go through on a case like this?
Not very many.
1 or 2, 3?
Yeah, sometimes. You might want to tinker with it somehow, use a different length of term or whatever.
So you could be maybe 5, 10 minutes into a regular case just looking at the numbers.
Much of your time is getting your life illustration exactly the way you want it, which has really nothing to do with us because we don't even do that.
Well, that's our show for today. Remember, you can read all my online insurance news commentary, advisor blogs, and articles on Producer's Web, as well as my answers to consumer questions on the Insurance Library. And don't forget to view any of our past episodes at our on-demand section located at www.downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. So don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com. And remember, you could be wiser as an Ash Brokerage advisor.